gives me great pleasure. Let me just introduce the panel first, and then I'll get into the topic. I think it'll be much more engaging to have the people sit here. So it gives me great pleasure to, I think, call Shri Kamlesh Pant, Chairman of the NPPA. Shri Pant has actually is now currently serving as the Chairman of the NPPA since 2021. He's a 1993 batch IAS officer and belonging to the HP cadre. This is the second stint of the Government of India, having earlier served in the Ministries of Finance, Defense, Road Transport, and Highways. And I was going to say that, and he got me to it. And he's from my college, IIT Kanpur. So absolutely, the pedigree is unquestionable. And before joining as chairman NPPA, he served as the principal secretary in various departments in the government of HP. And we're not going to ask him why did he leave all those cushy jobs to become the hottest seat in Indian pharma, but we are so glad to have you here. I also like to invite Shri Chandrashekar Ranga, the deputy DCGI. Shri Ranga is actually a noted figure in pharmaceutical administration with over 32 years of service. He's currently the deputy DCGI, Ministry of Health. And I do know there's some change in the offing, but I shall not say that publicly. But a good changes in the offing. And he was head of Ministry of Health and Family Affairs at Vriddhi. He was head of New Drugs, International Cell, eGov Cell, and as well as subsequent New Drugs, Biologics from 2012 to 2022. And he's played a pivotal role in signing of collaborations with international regulatory bodies, such as the US FDA, UK MHRA, and he's also made valuable contributions in drafting of the drug and cosmetics bills. I'm also personally aware that he's done significant amount of efforts in terms of the e-governance program, and the kind of systems that he's created, I think is something that's to be seen. And I think he's done a great job. And it's actually an award-winning Sugam portal, which is completely done and conceptualized by him, which has digitalized the entire CDSEO's primary services. Round of applause to him, please. And now I'd like to invite Dr. Sarah McMullen, the country director of the US FDA's India office. Dr. McMullen is actually serving as the country director, and she has an FDA career spanning over 19 years. And I knew that she will be the one person who will be wearing an Indian dress in the entire panel, so I must make that point. And in multiple roles, including chemist, tissue residue specialist, and consumer safety officer. Her experience includes analytical method development and testing for multiple FDA-regulated commodities, establishment inspections, import operations and policy, and foreign office service. She also holds a doctorate of philosophy in inorganic chemistry. And what it doesn't say in this thing is that she's a great sport. The last panel that we had, I really pulled her leg saying policemen's in town, sheriff's in town. And I realized she doesn't get mad, she just gets even later. And she'll figure out how to do that. I'd also like to invite my good friend, the IDMA big brother, as Dara Patel just said, the Secretary General of the IPA, Sudarshan Jain. Sudarshan's an healthcare and education enthusiast with over 40 years of leadership experience in the healthcare industry, including Piramal, Johnson & Johnson, Lupin, Abbott, and he's now currently the Secretary General of the Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance. He's also a senior advisor at Apex Partners and chairman of the Indian Institute of Healthcare Management and Research in Jaipur. And he's also on several boards, including Abbott India, Healthium, and the advisory board of NMIMS University. And he's done a great amount of contribution in terms of shaping the healthcare policy, as well as improving access to healthcare in India. Sudarshan Jain. And a great friend over 25 years from my perspective. I also would like to invite the National President of the IDMA and the Managing Director of Saga Lifesciences, Dr. Viranchi Shah. Dr. Shah is the National President of the IDMA. He's also the promoter and director of Saga Lifesciences. He has had multiple leadership positions and professional memberships, including organizations such as Pharmexcil, Gujarat Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Indian Pharmacopoeia Council, and he's been a keynote speaker in more than 100 national events and has over 15 research publications in various national and international journals. On a lighter note, I saw his resume and I said, when does he have time to run Saga? That seems to be an autopilot. So, did I touch a raw nerve there? But I think one more round for this entire panel, please. Applause. To take on something somebody mentioned yesterday, and I kind of, I think it was the N-Cube quality gentleman who'd come in here, and I think I like that thing. If you have to be, there are three things required to be successful in the pharma industry. Quality, quality, quality. So absolutely the most important reason why we are all in this particular industry is because to get quality medicines at affordable prices to the patient population that needs them. And that's been the bedrock of the industry and bedrock of the Indian industry as we see it today. So the idea of this panel was that people always talk about this as being a bit of a balance, that you need high quality, but you also needed the products at the price at which the last patient can afford it. And we as a country of 1.4 billion population know it better than anybody else, that there's, in spite of being the pharmacy of the world, there's a significant portion of our own population which still cannot access medicines. And while there are a lot of measures being done, there's still a lot to go. We all agree with that. So the idea of this panel was to get in the regulators, get in the industry, both the IDMA and IPA, as well as the regulators and the pricing authority, to understand what are the measures taken to that ensure that, one, that we are getting quality products out there, not just for the Indian population, but for the world that is served and so dependent on India today. And also ensure that how do you get the right balance between quality and affordability? What are those pricing mechanisms that we can do to ensure affordability to the patient, as well as promote business viability? If the company producing those medicines isn't viable as an economic entity, it is bad for the patient and bad for pharma as a whole. So we have to have that right balance. So that was the objective of doing this. So the way I'll run this is I'll have a few questions for the panel. At the end, I do have about 5-10 minutes I've budgeted for questions to the audience. I noticed that today people weren't using that opportunity to ask. So I would strongly suggest and recommend that you ask questions. Feel free to do that. Except Bharat Reddy, who I know has got some very tough questions. And do that. So I think, Sarah, I'll start with you. I think one thing we all know is, and what we understand is that India is a very important part of the US drug supply chain. So what have you seen? And obviously the US FDA experience, we always hear in the press, I would say the yellow journalism version of it in terms of dramatizing the FDA actions. But what improvements have you seen from a compliance perspective over the time that you spent here, that you're seeing that the Indian companies have done over the last 5 years? And what are some of the challenges that the US FDA is facing?
Morning, everybody. And first, I want to thank the leadership of IDMA for the invitation here. It's really wonderful, and I really appreciate the camaraderie that this shares. And it's a really hard act to follow. Wonderful speakers that we've heard this morning. So to that point where you talked about quality, I also hope that in the vein of our previous speaker, that we can all become ambassadors of quality so that you will also speak the same message that I'm speaking in your companies and also keep that same messaging throughout the communities that you impact. That being said, India is very important to the US, and so I want to set a little bit of context on sort of the role that India plays in providing pharmaceuticals for the US. In the US, 9 out of 10 patients consume generic drugs, and 40% of those drugs are made right here in India. And that number is only increasing. And so we really value the products that we get from India, and we also are invested in ensuring the quality of those products that are coming to the United States. When we talk about compliance over the past 5 years, when you think back 5 years, it's really difficult because that also includes some of the COVID years where we didn't have that transparency to be in facilities to really understand the state of compliance. Coming out of COVID in fiscal year 22, our pace of inspections started to increase, and you saw quite a bit of OAIs happening. And a lot of those were due to the fact that these were compliance follow-up inspections that had been pending since the pandemic. I will say the good news is that in the past year, in fiscal year 23, that relative ratio of OAIs has come down. So that is, and I think what this speaks to is that there's a genuine intention in industry to comply with FDA regulation. And I think that is in what we're seeing in the inspections. I do have to have a little bit of a cautionary note, though, because we have started to see an increase in data integrity concerns in facilities. And so some of these, and these are not just, oh, I made a mistake or somebody didn't know. These are systemic issues in the facilities that we've found these in, both in laboratory side and in manufacturing side. And so really for me, this really speaks to quality culture when you have systemic issues with data integrity. And so we talked a little bit earlier this morning about empowering everybody in your organization to be able to stand up and be able to take those right quality decisions. So, quality culture is going beyond a quality motto. Quality mottos are great, but how do you enforce that accountability within your organization to ensure that you don't have these instances where you have these gross data integrity issues? And so I think that would be one of the areas of focus for us, sort of just better understanding what leads to that and better ways to be able to mediate that.
That's a great point. And just a kind of a follow-up on that one. One hears also of concerns of drug shortages in the US. So what's the US FDA doing to kind of alleviate potential shortages? And what are the lessons being learned as to why did this happen in the first place?
Yes, so drug shortages are nothing new. We had a record high number of drug shortages back in 2011, over 200 new drug shortages in that year. And so we were tasked by Congress to really get to the bottom of why these shortages were existing. We actually did a study of over 160 different products that had gone into shortage. And of those, it was over 60% were due to issues in manufacturing, quality issues in manufacturing that led to those disruptions. And to that extent, we want to make sure that we can remediate, and really that's particularly problematic, right, when it's a facility issue that's causing a drug shortage. Now, we understand that drug shortages are very complex and caused by many reasons. Sometimes it's a surge in demand, sometimes it's a discontinuation of a product by a particular manufacturer. And those we have also gotten some additional authorities in being able to understand sooner. I think for shortages, when it comes to one of those other reasons, knowing as early in the process as possible gives us chance to find alternatives. And so we have other pathways of expediting approvals, of talking with companies and understanding what the hiccups are in the supply chain. But when the disruption is coming from manufacturing quality issues, that one is particularly problematic for us. Those are the things we seek to solve through inspections and then the follow-up with those.
Thanks so much. And that's something that's very heartening to note, that it's something that you're seized of. I'll just come to the Indian DCGI, the Deputy DCGI. Dr. Ranga, I think congratulations, first of all, on adopting the revised Schedule M notification, which enables compliance with the GMP guidelines. So how has the adaptation been so far? I want to understand that. And the second question related to that is, how does the DCGI balance its role between being a policeman and policing these changes versus being a coach and enabling the companies to do it? And I think a lot of the IDMA and the BDMA companies are the ones which will probably be wearing the brunt of those changes. So how do you kind of balance that role, and how has the adoption been so far?
Thank you, Sriram. At the outset, thank IDMA for having me here, and a wonderful place to choose for the conference of Flame University. Coming to the question, so the rules or regulations are made as per the requirement of the country at that point of. So earlier in 2001, we had the board Schedule M at that time, and because of the concerns at that time regarding accessibility, affordability, maybe the GMPs, which have been current till now, are relevant then. But the current situation is that so accessibility, affordability, and quality is also emphasized and need to be focused upon. So accessibility and affordability are dealt by other ministries in the government, NPPA, and even the health ministry. So the role of the CDSCO would be to focus on the quality of the drugs that are manufactured. So now we say, regulator always say that apart from quality, safety and efficacy are the three pillars of regulation. So there were concerns, sporadic incidents of quality concerns in the country earlier, but nothing new. But it is decided, it is felt that they are becoming more frequent, or maybe the concerns have increased. So how to address these concerns? So various options have been thought over, and one option is to have a system, a quality management system, to address the quality issues that are there. So it was decided to have this revised Schedule M for meeting various needs. One is so many concepts so which were also followed earlier voluntarily. So they have been mandatory, like pharmaceutical quality systems, quality risk management, product life cycle management, and specific, I mean, uh, more widely or more specifically said areas like validations uh, and specific requirements for manufacture of products, or maybe data integrity issues, or maybe computer validations. All these things have been made mandatory, which were earlier voluntary. And when it was decided to implement the Schedule M, so a detailed thought process went into what is the impact. So regulatory impact assessment is part of the regulatory science. So we have done this assessment on behalf of the CDSU. So we have gathered, so what are the number of manufacturing units that would be affected by the change in regulations. So when we gathered the data, so we found out there are 5,909 manufacturing units currently in operation today. So out of these 5,909, about 2,460 manufacturing units had WHO GMP. So that means these units almost they comply with the requirements of the revised Schedule M. So this constitutes about 42% of the total number of units in the country. So for these 42% of the units, so there are no issues or concerns regarding compliance with the Schedule M, revised Schedule M. Even in the remaining units, many of the units which are approved by the US FDA, EDQM, or maybe many other countries in regulated world, and also the units which only cater to the domestic market, they are good enough to meet the revised Schedule M. So when we discount all these things, there are about 3,000 units which need to be, we don't know whether they comply with the revised Schedule M or need to be upgraded. So along with that, so earlier I was talking about what are the options. So we also restarted rather, the risk-based inspections. So the risk-based inspections, more than I think about 300 to 400 by this time, and in my own zone, Vriddhi zone, so we have conducted 138 risk-based inspections till date. So almost 70% of the units that were under risk-based inspections, so they have upgraded themselves post these inspections voluntarily, and these units are also meeting the WHO requirements. So the situation is that all those units which comply with the revised Schedule M automatically qualify to the WHO GMP requirements. That means what all number of units that tomorrow comply with the, maybe after the full implementation of the revised Schedule M, they automatically qualify for the WHO requirements. And maybe at one point of time, so we need simply just issue certificate without going for audit, because they by default they are complying with that. So what I mean to say is, out of these 3,000 units, so the major brunt, maybe the investment has to be done by certain percentage of these, which we can't say this much. So we also discussed how to support the industry in this area. There are two ways. One is hand-holding, of course, and the second one is how to subsidize the investments that is being made. So the matter of subsidy, I mean support to the industry financially, is seized by the Department of Pharmaceuticals. So there is a SSC steering committee which is looking into this matter. So I am also a technical lead in the committee. So we all probably, if the Secretary DOP would have been here, he would have better explained that. But at this point of time, there is certainly some information, I can tell is that seriously DOP is looking into that and they would like to announce something. That is one aspect regarding the subsidy. Regarding regarding, he said, policing. Yeah, policing. So, Indian regulator, if all of you might have observed, was never a police. It was always supportive, facilitator sort of thing. And then only because of this RBI, maybe this thought of policing might have come up. But the entire industry, even in Baddi zone, the entire industry agrees that revised Schedule M is necessary. It is only the path that they should go on. So that is not clear. Maybe they are in a confused state, whether how to invest, how much time does it take, all these things. And here the associations play an important role. And we, as a regulator, what we have done is we have conducted workshops all across the country wherever pharma hubs are there. So starting from Chandigarh to even to Chennai. So number of all key places, that is one thing. The second thing is government has already issued time of 1 year. And in this 1 year, so they should start immediately planning, because all these will take certain time. These are measures, and the associations are also in touch with the CDSCO, DCGI, and we are also looking into whatever concerns. So they have cited some concerns. There was also meeting maybe last week, and the DCGI sees of the matter and would like to go into those issues. So this is an ongoing process, but it is coordination, and what we say that all the stakeholders should come together to make this, successful and then implemented fully. Then, so the capacity of the Indian industry would multiply in several fold, and then a new, say, internationally also, we have a new vistas that we can achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ranga. I think let's just go to the industry view right away. I think that's what I wanted to do. So, Dr. Shah, first of all, it's very heartening to see that the associations such as IDMA and IPA actually welcoming the Schedule M. I think that's one of the few rare things, which are the change that has occurred, that the associations have actively welcomed Schedule M. But honestly, what's been the experience? How are the IDMA members doing on that roadmap and to adopt this revised Schedule M? And also, what is the assistance that they need to get to adhering to that standards?
Thank you, Sriram. IDMA has been a part of discussion with the government, more specifically the office of DCGI, since 2017, when the Schedule M revision has, or even beyond that, before that, to understand what kind of changes need to be brought. Post the draft notification that was published in 2018, we have continued our engagement with the office of the DCGI. We have made several suggestions. Primarily as an industry, we all understand that with the upgradation of science and technology, we all have to upgrade our practices to keep in pace with what is happening globally. No doubt about it. The discussions that we are having are on how to do it. So principally, we are all aligned. The way it is to be done is something, because many of the things in the GMP are quite subjective. And a manufacturer A, with a scale and size that he operates in a certain part of India, with a certain set of operations, and a manufacturer B located somewhere else, operating on different set of products, they may require different approaches to do the same thing. So that is basically the point of our engagement with the office of DCGI. Now, if you see the context of the need for the upgradation, I was just talking to Sarah yesterday. Most of the value that has been created on the manufacturing shop floor, the value of manufacturing, even on the deals that have been happening, have happened because they have conform to certain global standards. And we have to understand that compliance to standards is therefore also a good commercial decision, not only a quality decision. And I think it's a combination of both. Given that, we also see that there is a transformational change possible in India in the next 20-25 years, and a lot of opportunities we have all been talking about. And the industry is aware of this. With the notification of the Schedule M, there honestly is a mixed response from the industry. As an association, we tried to scratch the surface and understand, well, many of the progressive companies have welcomed, many of them are already there. As he suggested, there are over 2,400 WHO GMP certified units who are already there. Many of the others are progressive and they want to conform. And there are a lot of voices that are also coming where there are concerns. And I think the concerns are because of the fear of unknown. They don't know the path. And we try to understand what were the reasons of this concern. And I think we got primarily 4 factors that we noticed. The first, of course, was finance. So we are engaging with the Department of Pharma. Unfortunately, because Dr. Runish Chawla has not been able to make it today, there is an event the Prime Minister is going to inaugurate AIMS and also one of the IPC labs. So our Minister and Dr. Runish Chawla are engaged with that particular event. But he was to announce some good news on the finance part. Hopefully that addresses a lot of concerns on the requirement of funds. The second problem was the skill level or the knowledge and skill that would be required to come to that level. IDMA, IPA, POPE, HDMA, all the associations are working together. In fact, we were one of the first people we had under the leadership of our regulatory team, Mr. Mudda, to start engaging with the industry to, give them solution-based approach to these changes. The third was the management's perspective, because it was very important that the management of these companies can see an opportunity for the revenue, for the resources they are going to invest now. And therefore, you see programs like Vriddhi, where we are trying to show them the bigger picture and develop that hunger that if I am part of this journey, maybe I invest a lot of resource today, but it's going to come back tomorrow. And the fourth problem was regarding certain contents that were covered in the text of the rule. We have spoken to the Honorable Minister. We have also spoken to the CGI. And we are also trying to address some of the gaps we think are still required to be rectified. And it's an ongoing process. So I think with this picture in mind, I'm very sure that the Indian industry will definitely go to the next level. The effort from IDMA is to make sure that, as our Honorable Prime Minister says, Sabka Vikas, everybody has to go to that level. And that's the effort we are making. Thank you.
I'll come back to you later. So I think what's important is now to pivot to the most important stakeholder in the entire pharma value chain, which is the patient. So Kamlesh, I'll come to you in terms of some of the conundrums that we are facing. It's popularly held that high quality means high price. And yet in your role, you are tasked with the unenviable task of making sure that we're balancing the twin objectives of ensuring that the Indian patient gets the right quality medicine, but at the affordable price. So what are your views on this?
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks. Thank you, IDMA. Yeah, thank you, IDMA, for bringing out this excellent session and very relevant session also, I would say, today, and bringing out all the stakeholders together. Of course, as you said, high quality means high price. Of course, this is a commonly held perception, of course. That is the, considered the best kind of indicator of quality. but that may not always be true. In fact, of course, certain high quality products, certain high quality things may require relatively much higher prices, but the correlation, I would say, is not perfect. The correlation between quality and price is not 100%, of course. It is well known. And of course, I think in a lighter vein, you organize a very good session by Dr. Kamdar on how to do it. But on a more serious note, the high pricing may be a result of various factors apart from, say, branding, marketing, even scarcity, etc., etc. So that's why I said the correlation is not perfect. And of course, by suitable interventions, by suitable policy, by suitable regulations, and in addition to the production side of it, by better processes, technology, etc., it could be possible and it should be possible to combine both the objectives together, to have both the meet both the objectives together of quality and price, high quality at an affordable price. In fact, I would say that the Indian pharmaceutical industry itself is a testimonial to this fact of good quality at a affordable price, reasonable price. And there you need not go further for this examination, for this particular, for an example. Now, how do we do it, and how kind of it can be done? We in India very consciously have adopted this market-based pricing strategy in this context, which takes care of the production part of it also, and it takes care of the affordability part of it also. And I believe that there is a reasonably good balance of addressing both sides of the issue. It reasonably caters for quality and innovation, etc. also. As you know, only around 81% of the market is under relatively stricter price regulation, that is a ceiling price. 81% of the market is of non-scheduled drugs, belongs to the non-scheduled drugs, which one is free to price. Of course, there is a ceiling in terms of annual price increase that can be taken, but there is no absolute ceiling as such of what should be the price. The manufacturers are free to do that. And in addition, there are other provisions in DPCO also which promote innovation and improvements in processes, etc. And we do take action on those provisions quite frequently. Para 32 and that 15%, 20% provision, I think people would be aware in the pharmaceutical industry. So, I believe that we have a reasonably good regulatory mechanism right now, which addresses both the affordability and quality, and at the same time ensuring that that manufacturers are able to earn a reasonable return. The production process is feasible, and things don't go out of production because of unnecessary and very strict kind of price controls. So, of course, I am not saying that everything is perfect. These things are dynamic, technology, processes, new innovation. Everything will require suitable updations to the pricing policy and suitable moderation into it. But we have a continuing dialogue with the industry and between industry and the regulators, DOP, and even DCGI for that matter on the quality side. So I think things are working reasonably well, and we are, of course, open to any suggestions for improvements. And of course, they have to be practical, implementable. But we do consider them, and we are open to them. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Kamlesh, I think just kind of following up from there, globally one hears of multiple pricing mechanisms, price controlling mechanisms, such as, outcomes-based pricing, value-based pricing, quality life adjusted, where government itself becomes a buyer and buys in volume and gets a discount.
Correct.
So there are multiple such mechanisms available. We did some inventory of some 8 or 10 different price control mechanisms are in play across the world in different markets and different economies. Whereas India, it seems like the price cap is the only mechanism that we have right now, the NPPA right now. So one question is that does NPPA have plans to adopt these other measures as well? Have you experimented with them or thinking about it? And how do we broad base it so that multiple levers are being used rather than just becoming one price ceiling?
Correct. Yeah, thank you. Yes, of course, in this context, Indian regulations basically deal primarily with ceiling prices and annual price increases in terms of regulation. Of course, we have dealt with certain innovation in recent times, like trade margin rationalization, etc., to some extent is already launched, and to some extent it is still to be launched, and it is a work in progress. But we must first start with the mandate of NPPA. The mandate of NPPA is to implement these pricing regulations, namely DPCO, Drug Price Control Order, and the policy part is not with NPPA. The policy and the determination of the policy is done by the government, and NPPA is supposed to implement it. So, of course, we do give inputs to the government in terms of in terms of the policy modifications and what is working, what is not working on those lines. But primarily, policy making is not NPPA's baby. So we are given a particular mandate, and we act as per that particular mandate, that is DPCO. At the same time, I would like to say that we are aware of various improvements, innovations, new kind of mechanisms coming up in this regard. We do track them, and we do keep them in our at our radar for possible interventions or possible adaptations. But at the same time, it is also to be understood that every country, for example, every country makes the policies, creates the kind of regulatory environment that best suits its circumstances. They will what works best for them, what is working best for them in their particular circumstances. So in the Indian context, the same has been done by Indian government of India also. And these new innovations are very contextual in the sense that they would depend on a lot of things. I mean, the world is very diverse. Indian economic conditions, Indian regulatory environment, Indian capabilities, Indian capacities may not be the same as some of the other countries that are adopting these innovations. And of course, we should be open to these new ideas coming into the field. We should be aware of these new mechanisms being brought out together. But at the same time, we have to see that whether we are in a position to whether they will work well for us, whether they are best suited for our country's particular conditions, and whether we have capabilities of implementing them also, because any policy is as good as its implementation. So considering all these aspects, this particular market-based pricing mechanism has been adopted by government, and I would say that this has worked much better, and I think here industry would agree with me that the earlier it has worked much better than the previous earlier mechanisms. And of course, there is always scope for improvement. There is always scope for innovation. There is always scope for bringing out new innovations, and I'm sure these innovations, etc., are at the radar of the policymakers at the appropriate level, and will be used as and when we think that the conditions are ripe for adoption of those new kind of innovation, and we can do that in a proper manner, and we are in a position to implement that. So this is the broad context in which the DPCO has been prepared, and in which we implemented the DPCO.
No, excellent answer.
Thank you.
So maybe, and it'll be right appropriate to also talk to Dr. Viranchi Shah on this one, and then I'll come to you, Sudarshan. In terms of how can the IDMA help minimize the impact of these price caps on the financial viability of pharma companies? How are investments being made to make sure that the quality investments, or the investments to meet these quality requirements are being done without any added costs or overheads which increases the price of the drug?
So, Sriram, I think we must first understand, there is a quote from Robert Lance who says that let's not fix which is not broken. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. So we must first understand what is the problem. Is our problem with the high pricing, or is it something else? In my opinion, and Dr. Pant has just endorsed it, Indian industry has benchmarked the affordability. Globally, there was a survey, I think Sudarshan Jain will be able to share the data. And the pricing that the Indian pharma industry could do, of course, there's an incredible work done by NPPA, Mr. Pant and his team, and the kind of legislations we have had for several years. India has demonstrated to the world that we can produce good quality medicines at a fraction of price that can be produced anywhere in the world. And therefore, we must understand that our problem is not actually high prices. Our problem is slightly different from that. The current mechanism is a wonderful mechanism. I think the entire industry is convinced that the market price based mechanism is a very welcome policy. The span is also, as Pants have suggested, a very humble, a small span that is subjected to approvals. There are certain improvements that, if you can call it that way, are possible in terms of making the current regime more industry friendly, more patient friendly. Prospecting pricing is one such step the industry has been requesting the government to consider, because it is a pain both for the industry and for the trade, recalling goods and affecting the pricing. The same time, certain provisions we deal with price approvals. We already requested the office of NPPA to address these issues. Certain manufacturers are already operating below the ceiling prices. Currently, it's not allowed for them to actually go to the ceiling price. There are these suggestions that we have already given to the NPPA. These are some of the things that will help the industry to smoothen the implementation of the price control regime. We will also have to understand that, and I'm not only linking with the quality, because of course, as he rightly said, it's not always that high quality will automatically mean high cost. We are living in an environment where there is an inflation which we have never seen in the past. And if you come close to the industry, even in terms of the cost of manpower, the minimum wages, everything is escalating at a speed which was never seen in the past, which directly impacts the cost of production. And if you want the industry not to cut corners, and no, I am not prescribing that anything of that sort has to be done, but a reasonable margin to operate in a free environment has to be available to the industry. So even the investors, we have some an investor forum after this session. The investors, the private equity comes to you, the first thing they think is, how do I exit and what multiples do I get? So given the big picture and all the good things that are possible, we have to ensure that the regime continues to give a breathing space to the industry, and the current market-based pricing policy is, I think, a good regime that helps us.
Sudarshan. Really a popular answer. So what is the IPA point of view on this, in terms of pricing and financial viability of companies?
So thank you very much, Sriram, and thanks to IDMA and Mehul for inviting us. And it is a great opportunity to be part of very. So I will quote some of the figures from yesterday's opening talk by Mehul. We are $50 billion industry at the moment. We are third largest in terms of volume and 14th largest. This implies very well that volume-wise we are big, value realizing, proving thereby that we have achieved our objective of affordability. What we need to do is go forward and move the objective of quality and innovation. If we look our overall future objective is we want to be $130 billion by 2030 and around $450 to $500 billion by 2047. Now, this can only be achieved by playing more on value instead of just playing on volume. If we achieve that objective, we'll be number one in the world in terms of by 2030 and around 8, 9 in terms of value. But objective, what we are looking for in Amrit Kal period, that we have to be among top 5 nations, value and play innovation quality. I'll work on what Viranchi ji was saying. If we see affordability and working on what Mr. Pant has been saying, first I will say that market-based pricing is much better than cost price, and we have certainly moved. Secondly, I will say that there has been a regular consultation with NPPA and DOP on all these issues, and always there is a thinking, how do we move forward the agenda? Some of the areas, like if we see and look at the price environment today, although we are allowed 10% price increase in decontrolled product and WPI price increase on controlled product. But if I see last 10 years, price increase in Indian market, they have been around 4 to 5%, which is lesser than the inflation. And the corollary is that there's such an intense competition in the Indian market. And competition is such a level playing field, which gets the pricing right, because there is a study which we have done with IIM Ahmedabad, and there is a concept of Hepsinder index, that in every therapy there are 60 to 70 products which are competing, and which lets the pricing down. So what is important is, and there is a lot of studies which have been done, there is a recent study which we had presented to the ministry, that we are the lowest price economy in the world in terms of medicine price. So that objective of affordability has been achieved. We cannot lose the focus on that objective because India is a self-pay market, and that's why the role of NPPA, the role of DOP becomes very important, and that's why the trade margin came in. It played a very important role in oncology because the margin was very high. So what the role which NPPA is doing and DOP is doing is commendable, that they are identifying the areas which helps to drive the price in reach of common man. But what is more important going forward is how can we make it more of lucrative for people to focus on quality? How do we get the innovation game right to take the industry to them? And that becomes fundamental.
That exactly was my follow-up question, because I think today, in fact, for many companies, the Indian market is actually one of the more attractive markets. There's a significant amount of pricing pressure from the US market itself. And we seem to be caught in this perennial pricing pressure. There's obviously domestic competition, international competition. And yet, and as rightly said, we are very highly volume and commodity folk. How are we going to make this shift from a volume to a value stand?
Very, very good question, Sriram. And that's the focus. And I will go back to Viranchi yesterday when he was talking, that we have to pay the value. Unless we play the value game, we cannot advance as a nation. I will focus on some of the yesterday's presentation, very insightful presentation by both MSN, Dr. Reddy's, and NQ, where all three of them talked of innovation, all three of them talk differentiation, all three of them talk of digitalization, all three of them talk of quality, because that will take us forward as far as both is concerned. Coming back to the US market, this is the first time after many years we have seen the increase in the pricing, 8% growth in the US market, commendable job by all of the Indian pharmaceutical industry. If we see what we need to do in the US market, upgrade our range, go from small molecules to biosimilars to complex molecules. And if I quote back, and I will go to Dr. Sarah, in 2014, and Dr. Sarah, we have been tracking the growth of the industry. In fact, Viranchi ji, me, Mehul, and all IDMA members have been working very closely with FDA, and we would like to thank FDA. 2014, we used to be like OAI observation, if I look back, it used to be around 27, 28% for Indian manufacturing, and it was only 8 to 9%. So that was the. all of us have been working for last 9 years, 10 years on the quality agenda. What has improved in last 10 years? There is a lot of emphasis on training. There is a lot of emphasis on programs. There is a lot of emphasis on creating SOPs. There is a lot of emphasis on quality lab systems. But what requires going first forward is our documentation processes, our data integrity. We have to get that part still right. And if I see recent trend on OAI, last year, because after COVID, it went up to 36%. But now we have come down 13% again, and we are comparable to what is happening in the world. 13% was there globally, and 13% is here. And let me assure to all the regulators that quality and quality and quality is the highest priority. It is the #1 agenda for all the leadership teams, whether IDMA, whether OPPI, whether IPA. #1 agenda. Aditi is here. Everyone is here. We talk quality is the quality culture is the part of the DNA of every company. And it is the agenda of the leadership team. And when it becomes the agenda of the leadership team, starts down. So first is leadership team agenda. Then we are talking of digitalization. We are talking of capability building. We are talking of documentation. In fact, Dr. Chandrashekar talked about that Chintan Shivar and documentation, SOPs become very, very important. So all the regulators, not only FDA is here, US FDA, we can assure, and Viranchi ji pointed out, lot is being done in terms of capability.
Sir, you want to respond? Yeah.
Thank you so much. And, you know, we are really excited about the innovation that's happening here in India. In fact, we've been welcomed in many of the incubators. We get to go to many companies and hear about what's happening in those areas. But I do want to say that we still need India in small molecule. The world needs India in the small molecule space. So, you know, innovation, yes, but please continue on supplying the world with what they need and what they've come to depend on India for. I also want to talk to Dr. Viranchi's point as well, and Mr. Sudarshan's, about investing in quality in people. And how many people here have gone through an FDA audit? I raise a hand. All right, so how many people how many people know what an FDA 483 is?
I think everybody would know.
Okay.
483.
Right.
Yes. It's in the popular press.
That's right. You see it in the news, right? So what do you think globally the #1 FDA 483 observation? The #1.
Data?
No?
No, using globally.
Globally.
Okay.
Inadequate investigation. So we talk about this. This is across manufacturing. This is across the laboratory. And this really talks back to a mindset, a regulatory mindset. And I like to say that regulatory thinking is a learned competency. It's not something that you're born with. And so really when we talk about training versus education, during the commissioner's visit when he was here in September, I can't remember if it was him that said it or somebody else that said it, but they said that training is teaching the rules and that education is teaching how to challenge the rules. And so we really need to have more education and less training because we really need to think about the critical impacts to product quality. And so those are the things that we see as the missing gaps. So there's, you know, did we follow this SOP? Did we do this? But did we make that assessment with respect to product quality, always looking back to product quality? And I think that's a piece that needs to continue development globally as well as here in India. So.
No, thanks a lot, Sarah. And I think, Sarah, this very much resounds to what Sudarshan and I have been discussing. How do you build a quality culture? And I think, Sudarshan, I'd love to know your responses on this because we said that we can buy the systems. We can buy the IT systems. We can put in all of the stuff. We can train people as in make them sit through a classroom course. But how do you imbibe a quality culture? Because that seems to be the differentiation between why a repeat observation comes versus people getting it.
So maybe 2, 3 areas. First, I will say leadership commitment, because quality flows from the top, and zero tolerance culture in the company as far as quality. Point number one. Point number 2 is digitization and automation will help the process. Because it is important that once we digitize, everything becomes relatively more objective and transparent around the. And the third is right kind of SOPs, right kind of processes to draw the whole thing. We are also working IDMA, IPA, with the Pharmacy Council of India. The next generation of students will come out of the institute. They have to be trained. The teachers have not been trained in the new quality method, and they are still operating full pay. So what is important is getting those teachers to the companies, tell them, educate them about what the way audit takes place, and improve the curriculum, the young students, because they should be the change agents. So all these measures are important at various stages, and I will also like to communicate that IPA, along with IDMA, we are planning to set up a skilling institute. The commitment is students, commitment is all companies, because we owe it to our patients that quality is fundamental, and each patient should get the medicine what we have got. So it is a great, great thing, and quality is quality, and quality is something.
Thank you, Sudarshan. I think that's fantastic. Now, I'd like to go back to Dr. Ranga in terms of understanding. While one can probably say that Schedule M is probably now done, we also have been talking about India's quest to become member of the PICS alliance, and also, I remember, I think the DCG had mentioned this, that this is actually a club that you need to get invited to. So, what are we going to do to get invited to that club?
Yeah. So PIC scheme, to become a member, there are two important requirements. One is the GMP of the aspiring country should be equivalent or comparable with the PIC scheme. That is one thing. Second one is the National Inspectorate, GMP Inspectorate, should have a quality management system. So these are the two key requirements to be met for becoming a member. So they mention it accession, but I do not agree with the word. I do not like that word accession. So to become a member of the PIC scheme. So apart from that, there are other requirements are also, but like training the inspectorate or maybe paying the fees, all these things. In early 2018, so there was a discussion then whether we should join PIC scheme or not by the Department of Commerce. They asked our opinion. Then we have said that these are the two key areas that need to be met. Then Department of Commerce, the secretary at that time, got a consultant, IMS Health, to study the entire matter and give a recommendation. So the IMS Health has given a report also. The report they shared with us and asked for our comments. So the first step was to make our GMP comparable with that of the PIC scheme. And in 2018 itself, we have issued a draft notification for this revised Schedule M. And we said, because this draft, when it is approved, so it will be comparable and our key requirement would be met. But the industry had various concerns on the implementation of the Schedule M. So that's why it got postponed. Now, because now it is notified, so the major impediment to join the PIC scheme, so that will be removed once we start implementing by the end of this year. So that is one. The second one is the QMS system for the inspectorate. The major challenge our country faces is that the licensing system is with the states. And the uniformity of implementation is the challenge that we need to address at the earliest and the topmost. And the risk-based inspection is a step in that direction to attain uniformity of the units, that the manufacturing units for pharma drugs in the country. But I mean, this thought has not been disseminated into the industry. So that is why they feel that risk-based inspection is something that is not needed probably. But the purpose is to ensure uniformity, because we are living, as an industry, we are living in a multiple worlds. So we have units approved for USFDA or EDQM, and then we have units approved for domestic. We have units approved for various other geographies. we are different. You are living in a different world with having a multiple requirements, and they are also met. So, to attain uniformity, so these two that we feel. But suppose if the 2018 notification was GMP notified in 2018 itself, today by this time we should have attained what the PICS requirement would have needed. And it is up to the industry, all the stakeholders to come forward to meet the requirements. And historically, it will take 7 to 10 years to meet the requirements. So probably even if we start today, so today 2014, by the end of 2014, even if we do at the earliest, it will be 31 or maybe 2034. But apart from that, whether joining PICS is so important. So personally, I differ from that, because so what as a country we need is that we need trust of the drugs which are manufactured in the country. We need consistency of the quality. So we need transparency in the way that the regulatory system operates. So if we do all these things, so automatically then we don't need a membership maybe of a PICS or any other ICH or any other thing, because when I was there in the head of the international cell, we got we became the observer of the ICH. So what I feel is that we should create our own club, the club for better affordability. Because many a time the industry feels, and also I echo that some of the regulations are in that category which are good to have and not must to have. So as a country and representing a developing world, that we need to have, must to have regulations, not good to have, because the incremental value is not that significant. So probably maybe industry should take this forward and then think in that manner and take a leadership rather than just follow it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sarah, this thing in terms of saying what is the lessons learned from other countries who have done this, and how is the FDA itself evolving?
Yeah, so thank you for this, and I've been told to keep it brief because I know we're coming up on the lunch break. And it's my opportunity to try to be persuasive on the value of ICH, PICS, IMDRF, and other regulatory harmonization bodies. We've heard a lot already about how meeting stringent regulatory standards is a value addition product. Now imagine you had that across multiple markets. That's the value of having ICH and PICS and other harmonized standards, right? So you can have that increased market access. You can have an understanding so that if you meet the principles of market A, you'll also meet market B, market C. This also gives us synergies among regulators in terms of sharing information, being able to take action based off of information because we have trust in the way that information is generated. And then I would also say that when we talk about regulatory decisions, there's even a couple of examples where we're harmonizing with other regulators that are like-minded, specifically in generic drugs. We have the generic drug cluster, oncology medications, and this increases access for patients. And in the end, the patients win because we're able to take quicker decisions and faster decisions across multiple markets. So those are my little persuasive points there on why value addition of ICH and PICS.
Very succinct, very good. You know what they say? They say that time flies when you're having fun. Given the amount of delay we've had, this must have been a very fun session. But I did promise one or two audience questions. So one audience question. It will be tough to get this panel again, guys. There you go. Somebody get a mic to him, please. Run. There's one at the back as well. Okay.
Actually, I don't have the question, but I have the request to Dr. Sarah. Actually, as we are a medium scale companies, so we need some special favor for the fees, because we have to pay facility fees, we have to pay Garufa fees, and we have to pay A&A fees. So at least if you consider some discount for the medium scale companies, then lot of medium scale companies again enter into the US and there will not be any scarcity of the medicines. Thank you.
Trust a Gujarati businessman never to lose an opportunity.
That's right.
I am Gujarati.
Excuse me. Can I have one more question, please, sir? With your permission.
Yeah,
Let us just answer this question.
2
One.
seconds.
Let us just respond to
Because I'm not going to be able to solve this issue in this time period here. But your concerns are well noted, and we have those conversations routinely with industry. And I would encourage you that the GDUFA fees are renegotiated every couple of years, and so making sure that you all of that is transparent. The agency's been very transparent on how we conduct that, and also the benefits afforded to industry because of the GDUFA fees. So you get a faster commitment to turning around applications. There's a lot of benefits for industry in the GDUFA fees themselves, but there is a process for that renegotiation process every year, every couple of years. So I would encourage you to chime in your 2 cents when that comes along.
Thank you.
You had a question at the back, please.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Ranga. I work for Center Pharmaceuticals, and I chair the pricing committee at IDMA. My question is for Mr. Pant, sir. Sir, this pertains to, this is about out-of-pocket expenditure being 62% in India. It's already there. So why not introduce a policy where medical insurance can be given for prescription medicines? If that is bought in, I think it would obviate the need for price control in India.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it is a very good suggestion. Mostly out of my mandate and my this thing. I mean, in fact, we had some discussion on this issue yesterday informally also. What I would say is, I mean, it is a kind of innovation which will require some thinking. Well, some I mean, as to its implementation, what are its pros and what are its cons? Whether we are ready to do that, whether it is implemented, all those things. But mostly, since it is out of my mandate and not really in my this thing, because I can pricing part, how much pricing control we have, I can have an opinion on that. Although it is basically policies, DOP's baby, I mean, it is not my direct mandate, but I can still offer some comments on that. But insurance and other things, very difficult for me to say officially. I can only offer unofficial suggestions, and we can meet after the session for that.
Thank you.
I think Ayushman Bharat and others are in that area, but absolutely, we can discuss funding separately completely. So I must now thank my august panel, and as is customary for me, we should certainly take our panel selfie.
Thank you very much, sirs and madam. I call upon Dr. Amit Ragnikar to present an honor with a memento to Shri Kamlesh Kumar Pant. I also request Dr. George Patani, he's here. Dr. Shah, please be in line, sir. I request Dr. Shah to honor Dr. Sarah McMullen. I request Shri Sumit Agrawal to honor. George, sir? Yes, okay, sir. Yes. I request Dr. George Patani to honor Dr. Chandrashekar Ranga. Shri Ajit Singh is there. Okay. I request Shri Sumit Agrawal to honor Dr. Viranchi Shah. I request Shri Mehul Shah to honor Shri Sudarshan Jain. And I request Dr. Shri S.M. Mudda sir to honor Sriram Srinivasan.